I'm actually noticing like you actually have to do ridiculous shit to like break through. Like it's at the point where your brain has to just be like, I don't care. I'm an expert. I've got an opinion and a perspective, and I'm going to stop trying to over control this.
As soon as you say trend, what I think to most people who are doing something is they're going to get lost. If it's already a trend, it's already saturated. What you should be doing is something different than disrupts.
Everybody is creating content. If you're not just showing up and being you, like you don't have to not be you, but if you're not doing that, like it's actually not going to work anymore.
People are interested in controversy. When you take control of your own press and your own media, you're not really counsellable, even though people think you should be.
Edits is a comparable to CapCut. CapCut is different than TikTok. So basically you would record a bunch of clips, usually on your phone video, like when you're traveling and stuff. And then you load those into a template in CapCut. They're basically pushing you to move it into a template in edits, and there's no watermark. It's like unlimited downloads. And like CapCut Premium is like $200 or something crazy.
What a brand, what a brand, what a brand, what a mighty good brand. Say it again now. What a brand, what a brand, what a brand, what a mighty good brand.
Welcome back, everyone, for another week of Art of the Brand. We're changing up our format a little bit this week, so give us feedback on what you think.
Let's get into her.
All right. So first headline is James Charles. He is in the news, and I want to talk about being uncancelable. So for those who don't know, especially for our slightly older audience, James Charles is a famous makeup artist who has really has kind of ridden this wave of like being famous and infamous. So he was super famous. He was one of the breakout YouTube makeup artists. And then he was kind of found to be like a bit of a tyrant, a bit of a predator, a not very nice gay man. Because there's an element to his predatorialness with trying to change straight men. And anyway, so he faced some backlash a few years ago, and he completely bounced back. Like he's got a super loyal following. As far as like the cancellation goes, like he was as bad as they got as far as like during that cancellation wave. And he bounced back, but now he's under fire again for another basically allegation of like being with a man that was once straight who is in a current court case for abuse of someone he was friends with. So the woman that he was friends with was dating this guy. She abused her. They're in court battle, and he's now under fire for effectively dating a guy that was abusive.
All right. So I, like the listeners, are waiting to hear what is relevant to our discussion today.
To me, he's such a perfect case study because I was talking to the Gen Zs in our office because to me, one, James Charles is like super irrelevant, but two, just how short of an attention span the average person online has, and how they actually want this, like they almost want you to ignore the cancellation and to come back and just like business as usual, because truly the consumer online doesn't care. They only care if you stop. So if you stop when you get canceled and it becomes like and you allow that to set in, that's what ruins you, not the actual going under fire.
The nuance is maybe lies in the move away from mainstream media. Like if you're dependent on mainstream media, a great point. Yeah. Then you can be canceled, because then the Twitter Nazis who decide who is a good person and who isn't can mount a campaign to get you fired from Fox, MSNBC News, or blacklisted. But when you exist in the world of social media, where there's a lot more kind of democracy to people making individual choices, people are interested in controversy. And how you respond to the controversy can frame how you're seen. And this is an example of when you take control of your own press and your own media, you're not really counsellable, even though people think you should be. In the end, the market will decide if you're interesting or not.
That's the absolute mic drop point, is that we actually need to redefine the word cancel. Because like to be canceled is to not have control over your space of employment. But that's the whole reason of why you invest in a personal brand, is it's your platform. But you're not going to grow a platform if you're not yourself. And who you are, not everyone is going to agree with, especially if you're being authentically you, because ultimately there's just so many people and so many opinions and so many perspectives.
It's actually the disease that infects a lot of corporations and CMOs, and that is they're terrified of being cancelable because they're operating in the old power structure of like, we don't want to be banned by traditional advertisers, or we don't want to be told that we can't go on NBC, right? But if you take control of your brand, take control of your own messaging, you can actually be far more risky, and your audience will respect it, even though maybe people in some organizations don't like it.
It's not even like an if, it's that you have no power when you are beholden to organizations because they don't want to take on risk. But the risk isn't the same when you're when you're a faceless company. The risk is much larger than when you are a person, because there's context to your perspective. There isn't context to a faceless corporation and how the faceless individuals acted on behalf of the corporation. And that's a really important difference.
Can I give a throwback to one of my favorite media moments that, again, qualifier, you might not like Elon Musk. You know, I personally think he's one of the brightest minds in our history and is doing amazing things. But he was on the stage being interviewed during an investor inquiry. And I remember the question where the interviewer goes, how do you respond to Apple and Disney and these advertisers saying that they're going to boycott X because you're opening the doors to free speech? And what I like about him is he takes time before he answers. So you can see the eyes flutter like a computer. And he was quiet for a while. He goes, I just tell them, fuck you. He goes, Apple, Disney, you want to not advertise on X because I'm opening up free speech? He goes, fuck you. You don't control me. He goes, you're like, he literally said, F you. And in the end, Disney stock is through the tank. Apple has now come back onto X, right? He wasn't cancelable because he was fearless of being manipulated by people who have an agenda. But it's a strong thing for me.
It's just you actually like kill somebody, like, or you do something really, 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 really bad. For the most part, the internet has a 10-minute attention span. Like, it's going to be here and it's going to go. And that's what the reason why I want to talk about James Charles from almost a different perspective is I was talking with the team, and there's a bunch of these characters that exist definitely within the younger audience sphere, because also, again, to your point, these people that are huge online didn't have to go through traditional media. So like anyone older than 30 that like existed in the media sphere was a part of an outdated model, and there's a different level of fear. But these younger people that are like, they're doing these things that are controversial. There was this one girl they were telling me about that did something like crazy at like a Met Gala event, made like a really ridiculous comment. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But the point was that she just like never addressed it online. She just like kept creating content. And then ultimately like the comments were like bad for like 2 weeks, and then like everyone moved on.
Reminds me of that song, Wasn't Me.
But
wasn't me. But I think what's helpful to the audience maybe is I have some skill sets in assessing risk from the military and some legal training. And risk tolerance, I think, is a big issue in a lot of companies right now in their approach to marketing. Yeah. If you're scared of pissing off anybody, you're not going to make decisions that allow you to grow at a fast rate. Yeah. And you don't want to be reckless, but I encourage people to think of risk tolerance not in terms of what people who don't like you will say, but risk tolerance is in relation to your target market. So you say, like, if I make this campaign, what is the risk that I alienate my target market? Or what is the risk that right? Not what is the risk that some subsidiary group on the outside comes in and says we're bad people, because I think, as we're going to talk later, I think that criticism can actually make your target audience more loyal if you're staying true to that messaging.
It's even simpler than that. Like, honestly, fear is the mind killer, because for social media, in order to break through, you have to say something.
So there has to be a higher acceptance of risk in order to be successful on social media.
Because you can't break, like, this is like a whole thing that I want to touch on today, is that I'm actually experiencing it firsthand. It's never been harder to break through the algorithm. Like, everybody is struggling. Nobody is spending money. Everybody is turning to creating content and trying to market themselves. Like, the phone has become the real only method of connecting, building, selling.
When you ask young people what their ideal job is, like, it used to be firefighter,
it's YouTuber,
teacher, it's influencer.
Yeah. Like, no, young kids, it's YouTuber.
By a huge proportion.
Yes. And because there's just, even like Instagram stories, like the view count is so down unless you have like a crazy story. Like, you're literally announcing you're pregnant, or like you're in Japan, because everybody is creating content. If you're not just showing up and being you, like, you don't have to not be you, but if you're not doing that, like, it's actually not going to work anymore. And that's like the sad reality. I was watching this video, and they talked about like the Howard Stern effect, and how Howard Stern realized that like there's like a standard kind of like, there's a line of safe, and just like being safe didn't result in viewership. And this was years ago, before the algorithm. And he realized like he needed to say crazy things. So because people that loved what he had to say had the exact same thing of what people that hated him had to say. And it was that regardless of what he said, they couldn't wait to hear what he had to say next. And people who hated him wanted to give their opinion, and people that loved him wanted to share their opinion and to use that opinion to help further their opinion. But social media has amplified that. It's like what these radio show hosts that were controversial realized is now just amplified in a way that, like, I can comment on your post and say I disagree with you, and people want that. People want to, like, show up and tell you they don't agree.
I think one of the things you have to relook at is these companies or social media people who are putting out this kind of blah vanilla stuff is it's disrespectful to your target audience to not put out something that's at least interesting to them.
Yeah.
To think that they're going to like it just because it has your logo and a couple of graphics and the right type of people there, like that's just old. You might as well be advertising in the telephone book. Like, it's time to change.
I think it's actually disrespectful to your team. I think it's disrespectful to the people you're hiring. It's disrespectful to your own time, because if you're not saying anything, it's not going to work.
We had somebody sometime last week who was like, I have a team of marketing people that I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on. I listened to the social media masterclass from Camille, and I feel like I know more than all of them put together.
They do.
And they're like, oh my God, we can do this. It's like all of these people have been trained to do things the way we always did it, and they're not dynamic. And there's so much room for improvement there.
Well, it makes me, before I move on from this topic, I just want to quickly illustrate this new model that I'm communicating. You're actually fighting, when you're posting on any platform, two ceilings. And most people think the only ceiling they're fighting is new followers. But through deductive reasoning, what you're missing is if every single post you're trying to create is to grow, and you assess how many views or impressions that you're getting per post, and it is a disproportionately small percentage to the followers you have, what you're not realizing is that Instagram is telling you that your post isn't even good enough to get to your followers. So if you have 2,000 followers and your post got 200 views, Instagram told you that it's literally not worth your 2,000 followers seeing that piece of content.
But what it actually said is, we showed this to 200 of your followers, and the engagement was so poor that we didn't show it to more.
Exactly. Like,
right?
that was the max that we could show it to, was those people.
Because they have that sample, and they didn't like it. They gave it a chance. And
the algorithm doesn't have this, like, evil vendetta against you personally. It's that your content sucks. And that's, like, people want to grow on socials. But, like, before you can even get to the growth ceiling, so, like, here's follower ceiling. So if, like, you're creating content and it's not breaking through the follower ceiling, you're not getting to the new followers.
We should create a meme of, like, a sports person, either a team, a coach, or a fan, blaming the ref for losing the game, and then having somebody who's trying to do social media just saying, blaming the algorithm, as opposed to just losing because they're not doing good.
But that's exactly it. And it's like, it's actually at the point where, and that's what we're going to get into talking about later, Penn Badgley's, like, social strategy right now. But I'm actually noticing, like, you actually have to do ridiculous shit to, like, break through. Like, it's at the point where your brain has to just be like, I don't care. I'm an expert. I've got an opinion and a perspective, and I'm gonna stop trying to over control this. I did a video this week in a hoodie with the hood up talking about Met Gala. It, like, disproportionately outperformed. And for the longest time, everything was like, pretty dresses, have your makeup done. Like, you literally have to show up without your makeup on to break the news, to get the point out. And if you're not prepared to do that, it's not going to work, because there's just so many people creating content.
But why I find it interesting in a competitive arena is it actually is rewarding intelligence. Yeah. And it's not academic intelligence, it's EQ.
Scrappy.
It's EQ. It's like, what can I do that will capture a human being's attention?
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of creativity by the people who are doing well, but, like, standard people who are educated in stuffy ways, who aren't naturally creative, they're not going to get it done for you. Yeah. You actually really need that secret sauce.
It's a great point. So let's move on to the next.
What's next? CMO CEOs?
Yeah, CMOs and CEOs. So there's a headline that came out on The Australian, which I know, haha, but it's actually blowing up on LinkedIn right now. And the headline is that effectively CMOs make for the best CEOs, because they understand business and their customer and their customers' buying preferences and buying psychology.
Insert meme of Jack Galifianakis laughing at that headline.
Well, this is like, literally people are going off on LinkedIn about this, because CMOs are like, absolutely, about time we're recognized to lead the company.
The data that I'm familiar is that it's not like the last year, but is that CMOs were the lowest percentage of C-suite executives. So you have chief financial officer, chief information officer, chief operations officer. There's a lot of chiefs. and chief marketing officer. But of all of them, the CMO was the lowest to get promoted. And it's because they were often, their trade was rooted in the kind of ephemeral, non-qualitative or non-quantitative element, whereas money talk. I can see this happening in a virtue signaling world because the CMO has now got disproportionate influence on making the company feel like they're good people who are complying with ESG stuff, right? So the CMO is getting more attention because they're saying, hey, look at how ESG friendly we are. And so that person is getting promoted into the spot as the brand. But I think it's actually resulting in most of the companies that are failing are the people who are doing that, because CMOs are generally educated at a business school. They're not really creative. And then they go down a path of pleasing people rather than making tough, risky, courageous decisions. Leaders have to be able to make decisions that piss people off. I don't see many CMOs that are prepared to do that. I was just thinking about a business coaching thing I was doing the other day where he had the whole team talking about, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I would just go, how much money did your company bring in last week? And nobody in the room knew. I'm like, you're talking about all of these things, but when it comes down to business success in the end, it's like, how much money did you make last month? Like, what did you actually put in? I find like these types of articles on LinkedIn are designed to make marketing people look wonderful. And because they have messaging platforms, they're all talking about it, but I call BS on the whole thing.
I'm going to take a different approach.
All right. Hit me.
I think it's complicated because more often than not, the CMOs I meet in the average big company are not fit for this statement. However, I also find the CEOs in most of these companies are also we're not producing people that are dynamic, that are scrappy. And because there's just been this perpetual focus on increased quarters, there is no focus on longevity in market. However, outside of what exists in the masses, when I study the brands that are really doing the best right now, like the Liquid Deaths, like I mean, there's just so many examples of these top brands that are like in the market that are killing it in branding. The CEO is the CMO. Like they really have both. Even like, Malbon, we were talking to them the other day. It's complicated because the skill sets.
The founder of Liquid Death was a CMO, right?
Yes.
In another company. But he's an outlier. But then he actually started his own company.
I think the direction we're moving in, though, which is relevant to analyze for this headline, is I think that with everything that's happening with tariffs, the house is falling, right? Like, I think there's not going to be as many businesses selling shit like there used to be. And there's going to be select businesses that ride the course because we're going into hard times. And I think the ones that are going to survive, there's not going to be a need for all these different skill sets that don't have overlap. Like the best people at branding and marketing are probably going to be running the companies because there's just going to be less companies.
But it depends on how the company selects CEOs, like if it's a public company and the board selects it or the shareholders. But I don't think it means just because there's going to be less companies doesn't mean more are going to be CMOs.
No, I just think the ones that are going to survive are going to have those skill sets. But
also in tough times. I'm just to make a counter argument, like CFOs know numbers, right? They don't get distracted, like they reinforce on the numbers at work. I think CFOs who understand creativity can become an amazing CEO, or CMOs who are truly, entrepreneurial and understand numbers can be it. But it sounds like a fluff piece article that's designed to get, interaction, because I think depending on the industry, it matters too.
Oh, that's a huge point of it. Yeah. I do think that there's something relevant to, or rather the takeaway point on my side is CEOs have been rewarded before the age of the internet for doing their job behind the scenes and like executing a well done business and brand. Where I think it's complicated or there's a wrinkle is that we're demanding founder-led brands, or at least a face on the brand, so that we can get to know the brand better. And maybe it's not like the traditional CMO who's in the role right now, but needing more of those marketing skill sets to navigate the business.
I would say a CEO wants to keep their job, better be watching your content or understanding how a brand works. Yeah. Because if you don't, it's a matter of time before you're going to be replaced.
And that's my point, is that I do think that the amalgamation of skills has to happen, but like there's a larger issue because like most CMOs are useless. So, but I agree. I think that we are agreeing.
Not that we have to agree.
Not that we have to agree, but I do think we agree on this one.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to label a whole sector bad, but I just think
honestly most are useless. I'll just go ahead and say it. Okay. But let us know your guys' thoughts on this headline. Okay, next topic.
Home hardware versus Canadian Tire.
Okay, this is a really interesting one.
Canadian Tire is a hardware store. Although it says tire, they did auto repair in the beginning, but then they became the biggest kind of Home Depot in Canada for a while before Home Depot came in.
But it was different than Home Depot because it wasn't like lumber and stuff. It was like fishing and like outdoor chairs and
tools
and
it was a hardware store / department store. But it became a Canadian favorite because they introduced, being very forward thinking, the founders, Canadian Tire money. Now think 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that if you spent money at Canadian Tire, they would give you Canadian Tire money back, like 10 cents, 25 cents,
like
50,
they
$1.
Full, like monopoly money. Like it was legit monopoly money.
But I just remember when I was young, my parents would store their Canadian Tire money, and then if I did enough chores, they'd give me the Canadian Tire money. I'd go and buy like a fishing lure or something. Like it was
amazing.
It was a reward system before reward systems existed, like point systems and all of that.
And it was, nobody else did it. It was like super special. And the Canadian Tire did such a great job because they were the first to market in their category. They had really good real estate. So there was always a Canadian Tire close by. Mm-hmm. And it was it became, honestly, it was like colloquial to like call it crappy tire because it was like kind of where you went to like go buy all your crap. This is even before Walmart because Walmart entered into Canada late, right? So this was kind of our like, oh, the coffee maker's broken, let's go to crappy. Like that was kind of, it was also pre-Amazon. It's where you got kind of all your house shit.
I told a story during the executive MBA, which
you had the chief marketing or whatever.
Came in to talk until she was a graduate of this very respected business school. And she came in and she was talking about Canadian Tire and how we're doing this and it's amazing.
It's amazing. Triangle rewards.
We're diverse. And I just thought I would share with them because my friends have like high discretionary money to go and buy things and fix things around their house. And every one of my male friends at the time complained that when they went into Canadian Tire, they couldn't find somebody that would help them find what they were looking for. And the only people who were in there were either kids or people who were new to the country who knew nothing about anything. And when we did our Home Depot study,
the number one differentiator is that they hired for personalities and like insane level of training and knowledge.
This lady was talking and it was like everybody was like a wow festival. She's a graduate, look how high up she is, and she reports right to the CEO. And I stood up because I'm a little bit interesting. And I said, look, I just want to give a suggestion if you talk to the CEO, because I've loved Canadian Tire my whole life. I thought you guys were forward thinkers with your Canadian Tire money. You're an institution in Canada, but you're losing us. You're losing my friends who have discretionary income because every time we go in the store, we can't find anybody to help us find anything. And I said, I know so many men who have moved because of that reason specifically. And I go, I know there's labor costs, but why not create an app that I could go into the store and open up an app and just type in what I want and it could direct me, or somebody could pop up on my phone and go, look, I'll help you find what you are in the store. Like it could be something like that. And you should have seen everybody in the course was like nodding. Yeah, that's a great idea. I've experienced it. And what happened is she just goes, I don't know what you're talking about. We have a trillium triangle reward system that is is the best system ever. And she goes, and right now it's easy to find things in Canadian Tire. So I don't even think that's a real, and I said, well, I just thought maybe you would pass that on to the CEO from somebody who was a loyal target, and this is what we're feeling. She goes, I don't think that's really appropriate to talk about. And then the prof who sponsored came in and goes, we don't need any more questions like that. We'll just end the session. And then after the session, all the guys came over and goes, man, I hate going to Canadian Tire because I can't find it. But the reason why I think we're bringing it up, well, that's just an example one of people who don't want to hear real feedback because Canadian Tire has struggled more since then. But when you go to another company called Home Hardware, we went to the other day and you had some comments about it I thought we would share too.
Well, the thing that's really interesting is that Home Hardware, so Canadian Tire has been like the iconic department store forever. And they started making budget cuts. They stopped focusing on their brand and the brand slowly started to die. Their upside is their real estate. So like that's been like what's kind of saved them is that they had established real estate that was convenient. This other brand in Canada called Home Hardware has been kind of, I would say it's been kind of a sleepy brand. It's like family owned, it's mom and pop, it's kind of smaller. It was a national brand, but it didn't have the same cachet. Like Canadian Tire is like Walmart in Canada. Home Hardware is like like an Aldi, like a random kind of other brand that's like it's just not comparable. It's also a more smaller town. Like you don't have.
I think it moved away when Canadian Tire took the big box locations. Home Hardware kept presence in the smaller areas that didn't have big boxes.
But Home Hardware also had lumber and stuff.
Yes.
Like they were kind of more of like a smaller town competitor to a Home Depot. Mm-hmm. And probably has been around for just as long, but in the last few years, home hardware has made a huge push on brand. And there's a lot of talk happening for kind of home hardware being the better kind of hardware home store solution. And it shows you how the fixation and focus on brand so greatly changes the conversation and the dialogue, because everyone's talking about it. Yeah.
So Canadian Tire has a brand and experience, and they're now known for having cheap, great sales on tools. Like, and they buy from China. But when we went into home hardware, that's a little bit bigger than their stores, I think we were both shocked right away at, like, this place looks exceptional.
It was like they had great brands.
Like the brand
people
consistency.
were hugging the staff.
Yeah.
Like, they came in and they were like, it was like literally like a Maxwell's commercial. Like, they were like coming in and hugging their friends, and like,
and the lady, they were all jovial, but also like, I've started picking this up more since we're doing this, but the visual presentation when you walked into the store was exceptional. It wasn't like a kind of cluttered hardware store, right?
No,
so
it was
somebody
so
is advising
organized.
them.
Well, that was also too because he worked with a huge grocery store chain. There's a whole industry of like aisle mapping, product mapping. It's a whole science of flow, because there was one grocery store in their brand that I didn't like the way the store was laid out, and I actually had the opportunity to talk to the CEO, and they're like, yes, like, here was our constraints based on that location because this person couldn't do that. And I didn't realize how big of a play it is, but home hardware has invested heavy in retail mapping, flow of aisles.
Their palette's good, and they're hiring great people,
and it's clean.
Yeah,
it's organized,
and because it's individually owned, they're actually doing a great job from a franchise model of making the owners create an amazing experience.
Yes. But also too, I think it's important, two things for me to touch on. One, when I went to home hardware, they had everything Yeti, which was, and they have it like on display when you walk in. So it's like you walk in and the whole left wall is like a Yeti wall. And one, I mean, who doesn't like looking at Yeti stuff? Like, Yeti stuff is designed with their color waves and their product SKUs. It's like, it's a really cool like brain experience because they have great products. When I went into Canadian Tire, because you had to charge the Tesla when you were in Bancroft, I anticipated with the similarity of their brand for them to also have Yeti products. And it was so disappointing because when I go in person to stores, I like seeing the Ninja products. I like seeing like the branded brands that like I don't get to see in real life because I never go into physical stores. Home hardware had way better brands, like for the like bringing you back into the physical shopping experience. Like, I want to go to home hardware when you need to go get tools or something because I want to go look at the Yeti stuff. It's driving me back.
That's why store redesign is good. And some of the older Canadian Tires are still kind of like the baskets everywhere and the cluttered. And but why I thought it was relevant for the podcast for us to talk about is to show that your brand has to have everything.
Yeah. A good product, a good story, good experience, and consistency. Like, you need all four.
And so Canadian Tire has had a well-recognized brand. Home Hardwares didn't. And what I thought we would share with the audience, or if anybody from Home Hardware is listening, is like, you are killing it at the experience level. At the outward messaging, you haven't captured it. I wasn't prepared for how good Home Hardware was. So the message hasn't gotten to me or to other people, right, about how good it is in there. So they're doing something really right, but the person who is doing outward messaging, I don't think is doing it in a way that gives respect or homage to how good the experience is.
You're not wrong. There's space for them to there's space for them to do more. However, I don't have a problem with executing fantastically and allowing your like customer to find you. Because we also left that experience and we also told like a lot of people and we put it on the podcast. Like, there also is something to not having to pay like hundreds of influencers to sing your praise. And like, that's actually what I think the better takeaway is.
No, I'm not saying they should do that. I agree with you. They're still spending money, but maybe they're spending less, and this is their brand strategy, is to make the experience. But I think if one of their people took your social media masterclass, I think it would change their lives, because there's so many good themes. Like, I would do content that would show me wandering around a Canadian Tire looking store, like trying to find something and just it being like a foreign, like I'm in a country where nobody speaks English, like, and I can't find it. And then I would show the welcoming, cool aspect of in home hardware, like to speak that language. I think that would bring more profit to them.
I don't think there's a problem with investing in your community. Like, I think that's actually kind of the problem right now is they're very selective on who their retail partners are. They're very selected on who their franchise partners are. they're very focused on in delivering a strong experience, and they're actually focusing on the things that matter. Like, you're right. Like, sure, they could have a funny socials, but it's also at a franchise business.
But I'm saying they need a brand refresh, because my understanding of home hardware before doesn't reflect what it is today. And that message hasn't got across to me because I would be a customer. I am now. Yeah. But I had to accidentally walk in. And to me, that's not good strategy. If you invest in changing it, you have to let people know that there's a different experience in there. I think I'm just looking up their logo to see if they changed.
I think that their brand is good. I think that their brand is good, and I think that.
But you never wanted to go to a home hardware because you thought it was cheap and garbage, and then when I brought you in, now you love home hardware. But before that, you didn't want to go.
Yeah, but I'm also. Okay, so that's not a fair statement, because prior to going into home hardware, I also didn't have a house, right? Like, I was living in a downtown city center.
No, I know, but you didn't think home hardware was a cool store.
But I would only go into home hardware when I had a reason to go into home hardware, and the moment that I did, which is the period of when we went into it, I'm going to become a loyal fan.
Okay, but don't ignore, if you want to argue, that you didn't think home hardware was a cool store. And then when you went in, so there might have been a way to message.
But I didn't think that home hardware was a cool store when I was a young person living in the heart of downtown, right? Like, home hardware wasn't relevant to me as a customer.
No, I'm not saying you were ignorant of it. Like, you might have been ignorant of it, but you didn't think it was a cool brand, right?
Well, why would I?
Well, because of their messaging of what it is. The same reason if you had never used a Yeti. But it's not even that they're
messaging for what it is. It's that I never was one of their target customers until I had a house. I didn't think the Home Depot was cool when my dad went when I was a kid, because I wasn't the home. But my dad was a huge raving fan because of their DIY book, and like.
Okay, so your dad was a raving fan, which then influenced you to think Home Depot was the place to go. So from a brand perspective, that's what I'm just saying. Like, your messaging, they weren't messaging down the chain as well to when somebody buys a home, where does the first place they think to go? Well, anyhow, that's their logo. I think they could do with a little.
I think there's definitely, like, you're not wrong. Like, there's space for more, but I also respect that they're also focusing on what matters most. Like, there's so many brands that are putting so much money into TikTok content, like, there's a limit, right? Like, it's either traditional TV or radio or some kind of like billboard or ad, or it's social media. And if that isn't their core focus for like improving their brand, which I can respect, right? Like, they're doing a fantastic job at their in-store brand level, because ultimately Canadian Tire has a better logo. They have like TV commercials. They own the like stadium in Ottawa for the Sens. Like, they're doing more on that front, but their experience in their in-store sucks.
So it's interesting. Like, do you spend all your money on TikTok videos, or do you spend it on good people? And that's a balance that you want to look at. Because spending it on good people, I think in the long run can be better for your brand, right? Because you get like raving fans. And in the example that I would share with people, I had occasion to be in a town that was I had to drive to it. It was far away, and there was two hotels, a Best Western and a Home Hardware.
No.
Sorry, a Best Western and a Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got mixed up. And I was booked in the Holiday Inn. I'm going to give two examples of hospitality that you can comment on. But I thought I was booked in the Best Western. They're the only two hotels in this smaller town. And I got there like at the end of my charge on the Tesla. And they had a charger there, but you had to kind of unlock it. And I went in to check in, and they're like, sorry, you're not here. And then I eventually found out that I was at the Holiday Inn across the road, which didn't have a charger. So I thought I had been booked in the charger. I asked the lady, I said, hey, can I just get a little charged so that I can get through to the next day? Like, I'll give you $50. I know I thought I had booked here. And she goes, let me talk to the manager. The manager comes out and goes, sorry, our policy is that only registered guests can charge here. I'm like, well, I can see them. They're both empty right there. Like, I travel a lot. Can I just pay you $50 and let me get enough clicks so that it doesn't cause me another hour delay? And he's like, sir, I'm sorry. The policy is you have to be a registered guest to use our charger. And I'm like, are you sure that's the right decision? Like, I travel. And he said, no. And I just walked out thinking, you guys suck. Like, why don't you have the authority to say, yeah, go there? And then I would have left a 5-star review. I would have said, Best Western's amazing. I didn't even register there, and they let me. Like, you need to hire people who have the knowledge to make the right call for your brand. If the CEO of Best Western knew about that, he would be upset. He wants his people to know to make the right decision to keep the brand in the right spot. First of all, what do you think about that? And I'll tell you the Holiday Inn story.
So what I think about that, yeah, there's this book that I read. I think it was either Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, or it was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, like one of those kinds of books. And he said he basically gives the autonomy to anybody to make a decision up to, it's like $500. And the same thing, Isidore Sharp in The Four Seasons, his book on the Four Seasons, said effectively the exact same thing, that people were able to make a decision up to $500. And based on what you were looking for in the autonomy. Like, it's difficult because, like, I understand, like, if there were guests and they were charging and like blah, blah, blah. But the fact that like it was a random weekday, there was nobody charging, and they could have made the decision that wouldn't have cost the brand anything, but wouldn't have changed your perspective of the brand, would have been the better thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's relevant to home hardware because their people seem so attuned to what their clients need. And the people that we talk to at home hardware seem to have knowledge of what was there and an ability to help. Because when I went across and I stayed at the other hotel, a Holiday Inn, which I'm some sort of elite member of because I travel so much, when I checked out the next day, I was delayed, but I know that I have late checkout till 3 o'clock. And I didn't call because I know as that member, I have late checkout. So I came back at 3 o'clock, and as I'm checking out, the front desk person goes, the manager needs to chat with you. And I'm like, and they come out, they go, we just want to let you know, Mr. Millar, that you didn't call ahead and tell us you wanted late checkout. And so at 11 o'clock, we were all wondering what's going on, and our cleaning staff. And I'm like, you're pretty empty right now. She's like, it doesn't matter. We have to schedule our cleaning staff. And so I could have charged you for another night, but I didn't because you're an elite member. But next time, please make sure. And I'm just like, I don't think that's how you would want your manager to be an ambassador to your elite status members. Maybe I should have. I didn't know I had to. I was actually in a meeting straight through. But to come and get lectured by a manager about policy, and this is what I want to get across, is that your policies are there for a purpose. It's probably so your company is successful, right? It's not to be just enforced, by the letter of the law. And you need to delegate authority to people to protect your brand at the lowest level.
It is complicated though, because also did that ruin your experience with the brand?
Somebody who travels a lot, to get chastised for not calling, you could say, you could have said that in such a nicer way. But what I'm saying is the quality of your hire makes a difference in terms of how they manage a customer relation, because people go and talk about it if they don't have a good experience.
But I think that's a relevant point. It's not what they said to you. It was the person's like conveyance of the point.
But it's also exactly what they said to me, because they were empty. That was a small person who wanted to make a point, right? And too many people break relationships with people they care about and with their clients, trying to be right rather than be successful. Like if I knew that, I would fire that manager for the way they dealt with that, right? You can turn something into a good, sir, we realized that you were a little late today, and although we didn't know about it, we extended you to 2 o'clock because that's what you're worth as a valued elite member anyhow. And it's a completely positive experience versus a negative one.
Yeah. I do think it's complicated when you're not a high-end brand, though, because when you are like a lower-rung brand and they don't have crazy margins in small towns, it's hard to find great people, right? Like the Four Seasons trains and flies.
Well, that's where home hardware is.
But I also think home hardware pays their people very well. A lot of the issue for like these brands that have not great employees is that they're not paying people fantastic, right? And it doesn't attract the best people because there isn't an incentive for great service. And that's like a relevant point too, is that like you get what you give. All right, so let's talk about Penn Badgley. There's this big trend that's coming out where people are basically creating content that like disrupts. So it's like it departs from your typical content, and it's designed to be more entertaining. So like Penn Badgley is doing this right now, and he's doing this big push for this movie, and he's going on all these shows and doing all these podcasts, and he's effectively doing this like skit or like dance-based content as a way to pattern disrupt and like make him show up on more algorithms so that his content does better on these shows.
I advocate in some ways against trend hunting. As soon as you say trend, what I think to most people who are doing something is they're going to get lost. If it's already a trend, it's already saturated. What you should be doing is something different than disrupts. But as soon as you see everybody is doing the dance, you don't want to be the person who does the dance because everybody's done it. What does it say? I'm not creative. I'm just copying what other people do. What he did, the way he did it, it was innovative and it was kind of new. And it supported where he was, right? But I think too many people follow trends rather than curate content that speaks to what their brand is and what their audience is looking for. Because I feel like I would just be copying what somebody else has proven successful to get likes, which I think is not what we should be using social media for.
I agree and I disagree. I agree that being fed a trend and asking you to do something that doesn't feel authentic is largely what I criticize like businesses for doing. However, what I'm also noticing though with the algorithm is that there becomes an over-reliance on like your style of content, and it becomes boring for the user, for the audience. So you need to do something that like breaks through the audience and connects with your community. And a really good way to connect with your community is to not take yourself too seriously.
Is that a trend or is that a truism?
It's a truism. And I'm not saying that you need to tap into trends for the sake of tapping into trends. I'm saying you need to disrupt in your content and find different ways to create content that aligns with your brand. And I've noticed even with our social media coordinator who works in-house full time, she's shown us trends in the past where I've been like, no, that's not my brand. Like, no, I'm not interested in that. And I've started trying them, and it's interesting how well they're breaking through to the algorithm. But I'm not doing trends to chase trends. I'm doing them to adapt to my brand and making it work for me. And it's really working for growth.
I'll push back. I'm not sure. You don't know what the quality of the growth is. So one of the problems with social media is, you don't know if the quality of the engagements is longer, which I don't think that's what I think you might get more likes and maybe some more followers. But I think she's amazing, obviously, but we have to be careful of short-term bumps that give us dopamine hits. Are they good for the brand? So I think if you're going to do things that disrupt, do intelligent things that disrupt the state of your brand, right? There are some trends that you would do that, right? So
that's where you need to have intelligent strategy. But what I'm noticing is that your page is being suppressed unless you are actively creating content that breaks the news and breaks through the algorithm. And being controversial is one way to do that. Showing up with different forms of content that's entertaining also is a way to do that. And what I'm noticing with the few examples that we did, and I'm noticing people doing this also online, we're actually getting comments and likes from our OG people that I haven't seen comment and like on our content in a while. And I don't think it's because our content hasn't been good enough for them. It's that they scrolled past a few of our videos and Instagram decided that our content wasn't the most relevant to them. And this broke through the algorithm because Instagram deemed that this is a way for them to reconnect with us.
I would be focused for a business of making a trend in their industry, right? Or stealing like an artist from other trends, right? And doing something that's disruptive.
So that's what I'm suggesting. It's stealing like an artist. When you see a trend right now is I almost forgot that this was the point, right? And basically most people are doing it in a very lifestyle way. I've asked the team to help me edit footage from us traveling and doing the person as a way to adapt it to our message. So I'm taking a concept and I'm adapting it to our brand. That's stealing like an artist. It's not doing the trend for the trend's sake. It's adapting something that's working to break through.
I think we've talked about it though, that trends can be seen as shortcuts to get immediate that say, oh, look, I'm growing, right? As opposed to sitting down and putting 4 hours aside and thinking, how do we make a very creative, entertaining, and exceptional piece of content?
You're making a great point, and I'm adding on to what you're saying. It's important for you to continue to diversify your content, because if you're not diversifying your content, you're actually not breaking through. Your followers aren't seeing your content. On top of that, in order to break through with using strategy, ensuring that it's on brand, doing something that disrupts from your typical content type, breaks through to your audience that are following you, and then it increases a higher likelihood of your following posts and stories to be shown to them because they engage with that piece of content.
No, I can get that, but I think the level of thing that I'm looking at, because I was talking one of our staff members from Russia, and so I got on my feed Russia therapy, right? It's your man's not emotionally connected with you, good, he's got a job. You know what I mean? And it was actually really funny, and she blew up. But then all of a sudden I saw 4 or 5 other people doing it, the same thing, and they weren't getting that, you know what I mean? And so I don't want anybody to do that, but you can learn from that and apply it to your thing. I also think maybe the dance video we saw from that guy, you could almost make it look like you're going to do the dance and then stop and go, forget it, we're not going to do this, and then go into a message. Just other ways to do something rather than just copying what somebody else has done.
Totally. Well, even the one that we did, feel like you guys are here for the zip line. I used that line, but people are redoing that concept. So ways, it's not me ripping off a fake Russian accent.
It's kind of a meme that's growing. Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah. It's a way to apply it.
So memes are very, sorry to cut you off. Memes are very powerful if you can tap into what society thinks is humorous at the time and then curate it
but doing it for your brand. That's the core point of that. Let's talk about H&M. So let's talk about this next headline. This is a crazy headline. And it's H&M is working directly with models and their agencies to create digital replicas of 30 different models this year that will be able to use in AI generated images for purposes such as social media posts and marketing campaigns. The models themselves will own the rights to their twins and will even be able to let other brands use them. Basically, this has been obviously super controversial because these models have allowed for their rights to be manipulated for ongoing campaigns. So they're getting paid for their likeness And I want your thoughts on this.
A lot of the Actors Guild union strike in Hollywood was based on concerns over digital use of an actor's persona and likeness, and they seem to get bogged down in it. I'm not that familiar with the story, but from a modeling perspective, if they've worked it in so the model can make money when they're sleeping because they're using an avatar, you don't have to go to 50 shoots. They'll probably get less pay if the avatar is getting used, but then they don't have to do as much work. So it's kind of an interesting way to license your likeness that AI can then generate into doing things on commercials. So at least the person is creating some IP in their likeness, but at some point it'd be interesting if AI can just make better looking models, right?
Well, I mean,
and then you're going to have,
but the only thing is there's no personal brand to that, right? So like, it's
but
a
model
whole thing.
Doesn't have a personal brand.
Yeah, they are. They do. Well, they have huge followings online.
Well, they may once they get known, right? But they're generally one-dimensional humans.
But that's the whole point, though, of like what a Zara and an H&M that they choose is that it's for the people. So like the models are like followable people. They're not thought leaders. They're not like dropping education, but they show what their life looks like.
Yeah, I just think they're going to be creating full AI models.
What's interesting is the quotes that come with it. My digital twin is proof that technology can enhance our profession, not replace it. She's like me without the jet lag. I control my digital twin's availability, and finally a way for me to be in New York and Tokyo on the same day. So it's exactly what you're saying. It's like these models are celebrating it because it allows them to effectively get more modeling gigs, because once they sign the contract, they don't have to go and do the shoot.
Yeah, I think they may be biting themselves in their own butt because people will have shorter attention spans, so the career of the model will last longer. And so I think you'll just see more and more models coming up out of everywhere, more temporary. So posting that it's amazing today, they're celebrating themselves, but it might be doing long-term damage to the industry.
I agree with you. I think that it's sticky territory. I think these models think it's cool for them to be the first to do this in kind of a global campaign, not only from the perspective of one, the obvious of where does this go, but two, what is your joy of life? If it just becomes that you're just licensing out your image and you don't even have to do the shoots, like what are you doing? You know that the natural next step is that you're going to be replaced, but if the next 2 or 3 years is you just like signing off your likeness.
The analysis from my perspective is it kind of reflects that models are more egoic and shallow.
Yeah.
Because they're celebrating, oh, look, I can just do that. Whereas the Actors Guild was like, no, you can't just replace us with AI. Like, we have a skill set that comes. We're not going to let you try to. And the people who are posting, oh, my God, look how cool I am because this happened, they're going to be temporary human beings.
Yeah.
Because they're showing that they're replaceable.
But the core thing with the Actors Guild was that they were pushing for the AI likeness without a compensation model that was set up for it, right? It was that like, basically we have you in a movie, we can like basically use that AI, like, because they're doing so much green screen already and like CGI, it's effectively like they already own their likeness, so there's no protection. They were trying to
prevent studios from not using,
without the compensation set
or
up,
just not using actors at all.
Yeah, well, that's
just kind of using AI to select from a bunch of people and creating digital actors.
Yeah.
But that looks so real that people don't know that it's a digital movie as opposed to a real movie.
Agree totally. I would like your guys' thoughts on it. Okay, so the last thing is kind of a breaking news. So Instagram has come up with this app called Edits app. And I wanted to talk about it on the podcast because really nobody is talking about it or using it. And CapCut has become a massive tool for creators by like basically being able to like edit videos at a very high-end experience, like on your phone. CapCut Premium costs money. Instagram launched Edits app, which is effectively a competitor to CapCut Premium, and it's free. And there's murmurs, right now it's very much whispers, of Instagram is going to be preferring that application because of the metadata that's going to be built into it, and it's effectively the exact same app as CapCut. So for people that listen to us, they get like first insight of download that app, that it's free, and start using the tools, the templates, the audio, so that you can get ahead of this application.
Two things there, I think. One, they're responding to just general knowledge that people are often filming their videos on TikTok because the content creator on TikTok generally makes better videos.
Yeah.
Like, people prefer it. So they probably saw that trend. And so this is a response to bring them back to making their videos on Instagram.
Well, it's more than that because CapCut is owned by ByteDance.
Mm-hmm.
So TikTok actually preferred CapCut editing because of the, like, they were connected applications, but like CapCut still had like a share to Instagram and button and stuff. But it was, you're right, pushing more people towards TikTok than to Instagram.
Probably if you want to stay on the cutting edge of your content. Like if you have a video, you film your video and then you go through Instagram for it. But, you know, in the past, you know, people would make a video through TikTok, save it, and then post that back up into Instagram. Like you might not want to be doing that. You might want to be using your platform's preferences to get the best traction within the platform.
Well, the reason why most people use the TikTok to record is that they have a really subtle beauty filter. So the thing that's like nice about recording on TikTok is that it gives you like kind of a slight blur, and not that it's like a full-blown filter. It's that the way that you can look when you're recording on your front camera is iPhone kind of distorts it, and depending on like the way that the light is, you actually look worse than you do in real life. So the thing that's nice about TikTok is it kind of like balances it out. The thing though, the reason why people don't love the TikTok is that like posting it to TikTok is that the CC captioning on TikTok is a little bit more masculine. It's a little bit more like aggressive in like its captioning style, whereas TikTok's a bit more cleaner, a bit more Instagram is a bit more cleaner, a bit more professional. So that's why people are recording it in TikTok and then saving it to Instagram. It's easy to record on Instagram. It's not as easy on TikTok, but CapCut versus edits isn't a comparable to what you're talking about. Edits is a comparable to CapCut. CapCut is different than TikTok. So basically you would record a bunch of clips usually on your phone video, like when you're traveling and stuff. And then you load those into a template in CapCut. Basically, they're pushing you to move it into a template in edit, and there's no watermark. It's like unlimited downloads, and like CapCut Premium is like $200 or something crazy. So it's like, it's actually worth it to get ahead of it on this app.
Try it out. Let us know if it works.
All right, so let's get into hot or not. We have 3 hot or nots to go over today, a bit of a different direction. The first is the Kind rebrand. So Kind bars went through a rebrand and it literally looks almost the exact same. What do you think? Is it hot or is it not? They basically did a full video on socials with like their whole office. They did it by the elevator. They like made it seem like there was this massive unveiling, and then the joke is that it's almost the exact same logo. And obviously it went crazy on the internet. It became like a meme because so often agencies are hired for a rebrand and then it's like the product that comes out is not different.
Yeah, it could either be brilliant or a fail. Like if you spent a lot of money and it came out like that, then it's a fail. But if the purpose of a rebrand is to get people to pay attention to your brand and double down in it, most rebrands don't do that. But if they kind of made it look like we have to make our brand better, and they do it and they go through, and then they go, no, it's actually perfect. Having seen that, when you see that color scheme in the supermarket, you're more embedded with Kind. So they actually may have met the aim through a rebrand that didn't rebrand.
What really changed my perspective on all of this was that book, How Brands Grow, because a big part, really the only takeaway that I felt like I learned from that famous branding book, and I use air quotes, is that they talk about how detrimental it is often to brands, because when you do a complete different rebrand, how long it takes for the human brain to like remap that product in the like visual association. And because Kind has such strong distribution, they're probably pretty handcuffed for doing like an absolute like total rebrand. So this is probably more like a refresh, which would make sense because one, their brand is good, you know, it's strong in market, but they probably needed to just modernize their packaging. And I think this is a really hot way of making a slight change become a social moment.
But if everybody did that, it would lose cachet. So the first person to do it gets the bump.
Yeah, so to me, it's hot. All right, next one is PwC. It's PricewaterhouseCoopers. They're like a big 5 consulting firm. They also did a rebrand that very similar to Kind, but not as funny. So they basically did their rebrand, and their tagline is "As You Can," which Oren hilariously says. He's like, this sounds like a motto from one of the Chinese cities. It's like, as you can. What do you think?
I just can't believe that that's actually a rebrand. Like, it seems like for PricewaterhouseCoopers to have credibility with business people in terms of giving an advisory perspective, whoever advised them on just adding more blocks, just seems ridiculous. Like, I don't know how much they spent on that. It's as you can is, I don't know who's in charge. I'm speechless about how bad that is.
I am too. Honestly, it's so bad. The first one was bad. Their first one was outdated. I can't believe they had that up until this point.
But at least it's recognizable. You know what I mean? Like, it's been around for a while. But the other one, it's like, it looks like a Minecraft, Tetris. I don't know what the hell it is. The font is the same. And then to say "as you can" is bad English. It's I don't know. To me, it sounds like these are not the droids you're looking for kind of statement. Like,
no, it's actually they've had a huge layoff actually also. So you can is their tagline. So you can.
Oh. No, that makes more sense. So you can.
I don't know.
So you can expand. So you can, but it's a number crunching company. It's got the creativity of 5 accountants and 5 librarians, who are visually impaired. Like that's who created that.
I agree with you. But like the whole thing is like the "So You Can" slogan is intended to be similar to Nike's "Just Do It," and it's like,
oh my God, intended to be?
No,
it's not.
No, but also like. This is happening as PwC is going through massive layoffs. So the whole joke is that this like rebrand cost them so much money they had to let everybody go, and then the rebrand is like the worst rebrand that has ever happened.
So you can lay people off.
So
like, that's what I'm going to be working on.
Yeah, no, it's a non. But it's also one. It's like you honestly couldn't pay me to be the agency that they hired to go through that. Like for them to end up with that. Oh my gosh.
You could pay me and I'd make it good.
No, but that's horrible. It wouldn't happen. Like those people cannot.
Yeah, I just think it goes back to what a change agent is. Today's world requires change agents, not rule followers, right? In order to make change, you have to disrupt. You cannot make any change in society unless you're willing to disrupt and accept the friction that comes with change. And your marketing needs change agents to get new markets. The CEO needs to be a change agent. We've seen it in politics. Doing things the old way doesn't work. It just burns money.
All right, we got one quick last one. So last one is Alex Earle. She did a collaborative campaign with Pantene, and I want to explain this so that it actually like has its weight and gravitas. So Alex Earle is like a big TikToker. She's really relevant to like a younger audience. She's like, kind of sexualized. She's like rough around the edges. She's like very real. And she basically over a year ago created this post where she's like her expired Pantene, like literally best before date had passed, worked better on her hair than non-expired Pantene product. And effectively because this post like did so well, and then she did a bunch of other posts on it because it's a beauty hack, right? Like she's basically saying that. So like people were like rushing to like gas stations and convenience stores, like trying to find places where like you could buy expired Pantene. Like had like the perfect recipe. Like it was an accessible price point. It was cheap, which her audience is like young. It was like hard to access. And like she was saying like how amazing her hair felt because it was expired. Pantene did a collaboration with her. They just launched, it's the unexpired Pantene line with Alex Earle. And her whole message is that like she reformulated this Pantene for this product, and it's better than her expired Pantene, but it's like not expired. So it's allowing her 7.5 million TikTok followers to buy into a trend that they can now purchase.
Well, it's a very intelligent campaign, right? To not just get upset and say, what do you mean? Our stuff is, I don't even know why shampoo has an expiry date. Like what I would have done is gone up and bought a bunch of Pantene, sat on it for a month, and then sold it on eBay.
No, right. It takes like years for Pantene to go bad.
Yeah.
Like it's not like a 4-week expiration.
How did she have one bottle of shampoo for years? That's really the question.
I feel like but I feel like Pantene is one of those things where like your mom buys for a spare bathroom.
Yeah.
And like you end up showering in the spare bathroom, and then you're like, shit, this was worked. But
so that's a brilliant whoever. That's probably one of the good CMOs, or who saw that and said, look, there's an opportunity there. Not to be defensive, but to just say, hey, let's figure out what actually happens when Pantene ages. The pH balance changes, probably a few degrees or something happens. Yeah. So let's now generate that in our current one. It's brilliant.
The reason why I loved it is it shows you a move for intelligent influencer marketing. Because when I say like the influencer marketing is dying is because brands are looking for like an easy way to sales. They've been saying like they've been trying to purchase an influencer. They get their rate and they're like, hey, I need to sell this new product. Let's go into our list of influencers. Let's pay their rate and let's push it on their feeds. And that isn't working anymore. And influencers are charging too much money and that whole system is broken. What Pantene did is how you should use influencers, because she's got an audience of 7.5 million followers that love Alex Earle, that want to follow what she does. And they're not trying to create a product like for the masses in Walmart. It's for like it's a niche audience, but like an audience of 25 million people, because she's got that many followers on both platforms. Plus there's a ton of people that see the content that don't follow her. So they're basically tapping into the Alex Earle community to sell millions of product, but by doing it in a way that actually makes sense for the following she built.
Again, it goes to first order thinking versus second and third. First order thinking is pay somebody to pretend they like your thing. And humans can sniff out fakes most of the time. The question is tapping into influencers in genuine moments. And sometimes the influencer isn't famous when they become an influencer. If you remember that guy who was skateboarding, I think it was Latino man, and he was skateboarding and he was listening to person who does landslide, Fleetwood Mac, right?
Yeah.
And he was eating a burrito or something, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's like an Oreo. Yeah, yes. It was like a generic product.
I think it was, but they sold out that day across the nation, right? I think it was eating something. It was a Subway. We should look it up.
Yeah.
But that really worked because that person did something unique with something that they really liked. Like it wasn't curated to be fake. Like if you tried to make that fake, it might not work as well.
Yeah.
The question is just maybe brands need to reach out to their audience and encourage them to show how they enjoy their product in a real way.
It was the cranberry juice.
The ocean spray.
Ocean spray.
Yeah.
It was
and they
ocean
sold
spray.
out like for the next month. That one person's video did more for sales than ever, right?
Yeah.
But I think what the guerrilla approach is, if you're a brand, is to actually have better communications with your actual buyers.
Yeah.
And encourage them to be like, like if you make a piece of content where you're authentically showing our product and it does well, we'll pay you. Because do those guys get paid? Did that guy get paid after the fact? Or did he just try to sell something? So you could kind of incentivize people showing how they relate to your product in a way that could go viral, but pay them. If it goes viral, then pay them. And then that would encourage people to try to make those moments.
Well, that's actually kind of where the internet like runs in your favor, is that those like typically those moments tend to result in like a branded campaign, or like the brand will reach out and like will pay you for rights to use the video. So there is like an incentive for like those moments. In fact, that's actually what one of our really good friends does. And she took a really big pivot in her influencing career. So she's a very well-known influencer, and she goes to all these events, and they're paid events. There's always an expectation that you post. And she was at an event for actually Tim Hortons, funny enough. So they were rolling out this new menu, and she realized, like, she went to this event, they were all rolling out this new menu, and they were all doing the same thing where they were taking videos, they were taking photos, but like the rollout was going to be like 4 days, 5 days. Her whole pivot was like, if my job is to break the news, let me do a same day edit and put it out so that I'm the first one within the legal rights to break the news on the new menu, that items that Tim Hortons had. And what she realized is that her content performed the best out of the entire group because hers broke the news. And based on that, she ended up actually getting paid the most amount of money. They came back to her and was like, hey, like, can we have your post? Because yours performed the best. And she wasn't even on that contract with them. So she started changing her relationship with these brands because she didn't care about what contract she was on. She understood that she needed to break the news.
You almost want to kind of think of what's a product that you use in a way where you're kind of in flow.
Oh, you're ready to be an influencer,
or you're in zen. I'm just thinking like you could do that with any brand, but like those are like the magic moments of every product, is when they actually really resonate with the user in a way that creates a state of flow.
Well, that's actually like literally the true magic, when the video was just so good, but they weren't trying. Like that guy on the skateboard wasn't trying, and
he just happened to have an ocean spray.
And it ended up doing like really well for the brand. But that's also the other thing too, is like you need to have to go back to like the home hardware concept. You just have to have an iconic brand so that that magic can happen. There's so many points of randomness that needs to occur in order for that like miracle to come together. The miracle of virality.
And with that
wraps up another week of Art of the Brand.
Yeah. Until next time.
Oh, and don't forget, if you like us, share us.
And get the social media masterclass.
Right, that too. Thank you.